Hello, I'm Dr. James Bogash, expert in health and longevity and creator of Bogash Life and Balance. And today we're going to talk about a very interesting study, but before we get into that, I really need to say that I've pulled my last little bits of hair out using tweezers to over this idea that there is nothing that we can do with COVID. That basically we're completely at the whim of Mother Nature and there's not a damn thing that we can do to change that. And so people then point to the 1 in a million opportunity where somebody who was healthy ended up with COVID and did not do well. But those are the news stories. If you look at the data, that is completely opposite of what the data suggests. And there is every opportunity to control your outcome with the choices that we make. It's ridiculous to think otherwise, and it is completely focusing on the anecdotes and not the reality of this study. And what I think that does is it gives people the excuse to not make changes. Oh, well, like Joe Smith over there was perfectly healthy, marathon runner, don't know anything about his diet, vitamin D levels, or if he took Tylenol, but he ended up on a ventilator, and so doesn't make a difference, so I'm not going to make any changes. That's the frustrating thing for me, and it's been this way with heart disease, with diabetes, with everything else. People escape making the right lifestyle choices because they feel that it's not going to make a difference, and yet that completely flies in the face of everything that we know, and that's no different with COVID. The contributions of elevated blood glucose, vitamin D levels, obesity, everything plays a role, and it plays a strong role. And it just frustrates me that people think that there's nothing that we can do and that, oh, well, lifestyle changes, well, it might help a little bit. That is absolutely not true. And what's interesting is this particular study looking at keto in a hospital setting. So don't need to go over ketogenic diet, but I do need to say that elevated blood sugar is a demon when it comes to COVID. I've mentioned this multiple times, thousands of times high, like literally thousands of times higher percentage risk of hospitalizations and dire outcomes with COVID when blood sugar is elevated. So what would happen if we brought in something like the keto in people that are hospitalized? Because we know that hospital food, a whole other topic altogether, but clearly not good for people. I don't know that I've ever had a really good hospital food story. We do have to be careful because a lot of times these people also have kidney failure, so you have to be careful with high protein, but not necessarily high fat, which is what keto is really about. But it was a small study. They looked at 34 people in the hospital were put on a ketogenic diet versus 68 people were kept on the same crappy hospital food. So what happened with their outcomes? And this also it might have to do with blood sugar, it might also have to do with inflammation, probably is a big player in inflammation, but clearly there was a difference. So let's start with the ICU. It was, again, small study, so we can't necessarily, but these factors are pretty strong. 87% reduction in going to the ICU. These are hospitalized patients that were on the ketogenic diet. 20% reduction in CPAP, so continuous positive airway pressure, not a ventilation, but certainly an oxygen support. So 20% reduced risk with that, and a 71% lower risk of dying. So for those people that say that diet can't make a difference, I will contend that that is absolutely not true. And this is not the only study. We can certainly look at them, but it frustrates me. And so I had to share this study, finding just one simple intervention, just changing the macro content of the diet, had a huge change in outcomes. Again, small study, but these are pretty dramatic results, and it completely makes sense. We can lower inflammation, lower blood sugar, and have a positive outcome. As always, I'll post a link to this particular study in the description. Make sure you like this video, share it with somebody who you think it's the end of the world and there's nothing they can do, and subscribe to the channel.